Welcome to the What Are You Making podcast. What Are You Making podcast? I should say that really clearly. I'm excited about today's episode, but before we get into our guest, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's commented or watched or subscribed on YouTube. I haven't really pushed for YouTube subscriptions or really anything social media other than on LinkedIn. I'm a firm believer that LinkedIn is the platform of the future, and I'm really gunning for a LinkedIn sponsorship is what it comes down to. So, yeah, thanks for watching. And we're going to get more into topics everybody has reached out about that they care about. Some specifics around, I was talking to a friend last night about things like salary bands, and we talked a little bit with Nancy Strange about negotiating. And I think there's more to the money conversation to be had than I've been having, which is important, but also not the whole point of the podcast. It's really to highlight what people are doing. Somebody said to me when I was thinking about starting this, you're kind of like A24. You should just, help market these people who are doing things. And I think that's a great analogy, because A24 movies are a very specific type of thing, but you can't really pigeonhole them. They're all kinds of different genres, and they're very creative stories. And I think that's kind of like our guest today. To get into it, let's let him in. It's Travis Hill. Welcome, Travis. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good morning. It's going all right. How are you doing, man? Yeah. I have an old Yeti.
That's great.
Like way back when some buddies and I guess it's been about 7 or 8 years or so. We did like a board game podcast, and so one of the first things to do is like, oh, I gotta get a microphone. And so it's just been sitting in my closet for like the last 2 or 3 years, and so it's like, oh, maybe I should actually use this now.
Yeah, when I did the first video, I listened to myself and I was like, no, this is not going to work. And then I have a friend who's a audio nerd. He works at a radio station, and his whole job is making sure that the radio station locally here sounds great. And
Funny.
He was like, here's what you need to buy. Get this, pay a little more and get this one, whatever.
Yeah.
And he was right. It's like, now I look at podcasts and it's like the mic that I see these podcasts. So it's like, good job.
Excellent. And you're up. Are you in Oregon? Are you in Portland?
I'm in Portland, Oregon. Yeah. And
Okay,
where are you?
rad.
You're in
Cool.
Texas. You're in Dallas, Texas. Texas?
Yeah. I'm in the northeast side of Dallas. Yeah, I'm in one of the suburbs. But yeah, I'm still local. So cool,
So
man.
good to see you. Let me introduce you with your bio so everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
So Travis D. Hill loves spending his board gaming time playing heavy economic train games, indie RPGs, fiddly war games, and crunchy Euros. I love this writing. Combining his fascination with language and love of gaming, making the jump into proofing and editing rulebooks was the perfect marriage between skill and passion. Since 2014, he's been fortunate to work on a number of companies as a freelance proofreader and rulebook editor. I'm doing that right now. I'm doing some editing. It's really fun. He spent the last couple of years designing games on opposite ends of the spectrum, designing things that interact with us in a different way. He wants games to express desires, build empathy, value communication, and dig deeper into what moves and motivates us to do what we do. He's also pursuing his Ph.D. in educational psychology with a concentration in gifted education and creativity. Awesome.
Yeah.
So give it up for Travis Hill.
Hopefully that last part will be different in about 2 weeks whenever I defend my dissertation and I'm no longer pursuing a PhD. I might actually be a PhD at that point.
Yes, that's great news.
That's what I'm hoping.
So it's within sight. You're almost out of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in this weird in between stage where I've submitted everything to my committee, and I'm just waiting for them to give me comments and feedback. And so it's
Nice.
weird because it's like you're on this like trajectory of like nonstop crunching and working and thinking and doing, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I kind of have nothing to do right now.
Yeah.
This feels weird. And then in 2 weeks, I'm gonna have a whole lot to do for about a week, and then afterwards, will be like, oh, I guess this is what I am now. This is weird.
Now restaurants, you just say it's Doctor Hill
Doctor
to the
Doctor
people.
Hill, Doctor Hill. Yes, thank you.
Nice. So let's get right into it. What are you making? Because actually, I've been looking for people to put on the video podcast, and I got an email from you about something you're making right now that's on Kickstarter, which is really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I feel like I'm constantly kind of poking at a bunch of small things, right? And this is nothing different. One of the things that I'm working on right now that is a campaign that I just launched is called Rite, Rite. And it's an RPG zine, right? So it's a role playing game that is just small form factor. I predominantly use everything in like an A6 size because I feel like that kind of like 4 by 5 inch, 4.1 by 5.8 inch size is like perfect. And then plus for like shipping purposes, it is the largest size that you can fit
I love that.
without getting additional postage or special postage or special
Right.
envelopes. And so there's like a form factor consideration that's like, let's just make a zine that's about this big. And it's a role playing game. And it's kind of in a weird space in a role playing game. You talked about this, just kind of like from bio stuff, is that I don't normally sit around and do things like Dungeons and Dragons and do things like big fantasy epic things. Sometimes, I like engaging in that, but I don't like creating those types of things.
Mm.
Nothing against it, but there's a lot of people who are doing it and a lot of people who are doing it well. And so I think part of any type of creative endeavor that you want to do is finding a niche, finding like what's your piece of the pie as you go and see like what are the things that I feel comfortable kind of engaging into.
Let's
Right
back
is
up
one
one
of
second
those. Okay, yeah, yeah.
because I know you said it quickly, but I know a lot of people don't know like what an RPG game is and then like what a zine is even. So can you kind of
Sure.
unpack those two things and like why?
Yeah.
Because like if you've never heard of that, like why is that a thing and what is that?
Yeah, yeah, totally. RPG's role playing game, right, is the most popular one that most people know is some version of Dungeons and Dragons, to where you have a group of people who are sitting around a table. You have one person who is a GM, a game master, who has like internalized all of the rules, internalized all the scenarios, has a book that they're kind of flipping through to help people go on this journey. So for Dungeons and Dragons, that would be like a quest, right? I'm going
Yeah.
literally into a dungeon, I'm fighting some dragons, and then each player takes on the role of a character that they have created. It could be a barbarian or a rogue or whatever. You have some like some stats, which is like, oh, I'm a barbarian, so I'm really strong, right? And so anytime that you encounter a thing and you have to see if you win or not, you roll some dice. A barbarian is going to be stronger. So whenever they go in and say, I am going to attack with this big, massive axe, you have a better chance of defeating the goblin that way. But if you have a bard who's like, I'm going to also attack with the big axe, they're probably not as strong because they're whatever it is that they're doing, whatever their
They're a
role
weekly
is, right?
writer. Yes.
Yeah, right. And so because of that,
Hmm.
like role playing games are to me are ways that people can engage in creative exercises and
Okay.
very unique scenarios and as opposed to say like a board game that
Monopoly.
provides yeah right, like a board game like a Monopoly that provides a very specific construct of rules that you have to follow, right?
Yes.
You can't advance forward because you didn't roll the dice. You can't move past go without doing X, Y, and Z. You have to purchase this, you have to sell this. There are very specific rules that provide a framework for the way that you interact with the game itself.
Got
In
it.
a role-playing game, in an RPG, oftentimes the instructions are loose, and
Okay.
because of that, the interpretation comes up to the players.
Right.
So there's nothing in like a guidebook that's going to say, usually there's not a thing in a guidebook that's going to say something along the lines of, hey, whenever you go down these stairs and enter this room, there are going to be 15 goblins that you're going to have to fight, and there's an axe in the corner, and there's a torch on the wall. It doesn't do that. Instead the players are the ones who actually co-create that space and that they're able to kind of like dig into.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like the traditional like RPG space. And we'll get into
Like
my
Dungeons and Dragons
thoughts
has
on
a
that as we
board and
go.
like
Yeah.
not a board, but it has like a big manual or there's a book I know, and there's like people
Yeah.
have die and there's characters. So how is the zine format and what you're doing? And I guess kind of talk about specifically about what you're doing with this Kickstarter. Like
Yeah.
what how
Yeah.
is this one different and what's your thought process there?
Yeah, totally. So one, I'm not a big fan of most of those really large RPGs because I don't selfishly, personally, I don't want to spend all this time reading a 200 or sometimes 300 page manual
Right.
to be the person that ingests the rules. Like, so this is
Okay.
actually part of like my RPG shelf over here.
Okay.
And like dialect is like the longest one that I have. And it
Still
is
pretty big.
100 and
Yeah.
it's still pretty big, right? This is like 140 pages, right? And so it has a whole lot of information in it to help guide people through the process. That feels daunting to me.
Yeah.
A lot of what I want to do is like lower the cost of entry into
Okay.
the space. And
Nice.
so by doing that, by being able to like kind of like work through what is a zine or work through like what is a smaller entry point. Well, first of all, you need something that's just like a shorter it's a shorter manuscript, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes larger role-playing games are going to be conducted over several nights. Brendan Lee Mulligan, who does like Dimension 20 and all these like big like role-playing game stuff that you've seen on like Game Changer, on like TikTok and things like that, he actually just mentioned, I saw on some video that he mentioned that he just wrapped up a 14-year campaign that he's played with friends. And so that's one game over 14 years, right? And
Okay.
that's just daunting to me. I mean, it's obviously a little abnormal for things to go that
For
long, but
sure.
it's daunting to me. Like I don't want to be caught in a thing that long. And so I
Right.
think of coming from an adjacent space of how do I lower the entry into what's going on? How do I make it so that this is not as difficult? Well, one, I need to have shorter content. I don't need to provide everything to people, which then obviously reduces the scope of the work as well. So instead of what is this multiple campaign game that could go on ad nauseum, what is a beginning and an end, right? So this is
Right.
a one shot little sliver, a little idea that you could play over a couple of hours in one evening with friends, however that works, however
It
you
will
want
not
to
take
engage it.
14 years.
It will not take 14 years. Yeah, and if it does, then you're adding on a lot of stuff. And that's entirely up to you as the player,
Hmm.
right? That like run with it. But because of that, I wanted to have something that was smaller in terms of content, but then also I know in terms of, as I was mentioning earlier, like form factor. Like I have A6 size envelopes. These are just all on my desk right here. I have A6 size envelopes, and this is what it fits in, right? So like I have a zine that is this size that fits into this thick of an envelope. And I think it's important because it lowers the barrier of entry, but then it also puts restrictions on myself of
Right.
how I can't bloat. I can't
Sure.
add on all of this stuff. It's like this is a
You have a
maximum. The
piece of
largest one of
paper.
these
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. The largest one of these that I ever made was like 32 pages, and that was like thick. That was like
Uh-huh.
thick getting in there, right? And because they're in this kind of a booklet format, right, that you can go and you can get printed online, and so the zine side made it really nice because it's just it's just saddle stapled just right on the end, so that it's
Uh-huh.
just it doesn't have any type of like perfect binding or anything on the edge, right? And so it's just you open it up, you got a cover, you got a front and a back, and you have interior pages. And so it's up to me to fill in those spaces with what makes the most sense.
Okay, so I know kind of what Monopoly, a turn in Monopoly is, and I've heard, and I've there's Dungeons and Dragons movies now. People kind of know you're fighting a beast, you're rolling the dice, you're or the die, and you're seeing how it comes up to judge what happens. Like, what is an example in your zine? Like, it doesn't have to be right, but it could be any previous zine. Like, what's something that somebody does, actually does?
Yeah, yeah. So to kind of start to turn things on their head a little bit, a few years ago, there was a really large emergence in what we call solo journaling games, to where you're actually not sitting down with a table of players, you're actually engaging in this journey yourself. Once again, so solo journaling RPGs are kind of this journaling is a, I also want to give a big caveat here. The word journaling has emerged over the last few years as well, to where it started off as I have pen and paper and I'm actually writing things out, to where now people are thinking, what are more accessible ways for people to engage in this? Is it like a Word doc online? Is it a Google slide? Is it they're just voice recording their thoughts on things? Are they actually playing with other people to engage? So one game that my spouse and I actually co-wrote together is called The Portal at Hill House, and it's a solo journaling RPG of cosmic horror. And
Okay,
so you are explore. There's this house. There's a big portal over it. Our last names are Hill. It kind of makes sense, right?
right.
Haunting of Hill House was coming out. Like there's all of the stars aligned. This felt like a good opportunity. No one could say that we were like stealing anything because it's literally like our last names. And so we're like, okay, let's do this. And the idea behind this, so like a turn in this game is that the randomizer is actually a deck of cards. And so each and so you take the card, you take the deck of cards, you separate it into the four different suits and you shuffle them individually. So you actually have four stacks of cards for, hearts, spades, clubs, and diamonds that are in front of you. And whenever you go into a different room of the house, which there's like a little map that you either can generate on your own or there are pre-made maps in the actual book. You can go into that room. You just say, I'm going into room 12, whatever it is. This looks like it is a closet or a bedroom or a whatever. You actually flip over three of the four stacks of cards and you see what the number is.
Okay.
And within the book itself has two word descriptions for each of those cards, right? So like the hearts, and I'm going to like misremember this because it's been 5 years since I wrote this game. But like the hearts might be like the ambiance of the room. The diamonds might be what visually you see in the room. And then, the clubs might be something else within that space. And so it provides you kind of like this little bit of creative prompt that then it is on you to describe what it is in that space that you are. So
Okay.
so your turn would be, I'm flipping over these cards. Okay, I have a smelly room that has like a foreboding sense and a wooden paneled closet that has opened to a starry background. Okay, what does that mean to you, right? And so you're kind of engaging in this idea, whether you're handwriting it, you're typing it out, you're voice recording it, you're narrating it, you're having this conversation with the game of how do I engage in this space and what does that actually look like? And so like that would be your turn. And then your next turn would be you're going into a different room. Now, there's like a goal, right? And so you're trying
Yeah,
to
I was
find
gonna
some
say,
things and do
what
some
is the
things. Yeah.
goal? Like, how does this game end? Because it seems like you could
Yeah.
explore and talk about these rooms forever. Like, what is the?
Yeah.
How do you know when you're done?
Yeah. So in Portal, the fourth suit is actually a timer deck. And so as that goes on, that reduces the amount of time that you have. And if that runs out, and there are other mechanisms within the game that advances that deck further. And so there's a way that you can run out of cards before everything else, before you explore everything. As
Okay.
you're exploring, you're trying to find these artifacts, right? You're trying to find
Okay.
three artifacts that are kind of these weird, nameless, garbled word thing. And if you find all three of them, then you're able to seal up the portal and you're good to go. But if you don't and you run out of time, portal swallows you whole. Too bad.
Got it. So I don't want to spoil Right, but everybody, I'll put the link in for Right. You can check that out. It looks like it's funded, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, and I think
244, or sorry, 57 people have backed it. That was still 3 days to go. That's awesome. Congrats.
yeah, thanks. It's funding is such an interesting thing because they're in kind of like the crowdfunding world, you will get companies or indie creators who will put different types of funding goals. My funding goal on this was $100, right?
Okay.
Nothing, like bare bones. Like it's like just to be real transparent for anybody that clicks on this, they're going to be like, "Oh, but your Travis's funding goal was $100." Well, because I know it. One, I know it's going to be funded, and because they usually do.
Hmm.
And two, like I'm not. I want people to feel confident that they're going to get X because they've paid for X. I don't want to say, hey, you're going to get this needs to get to $2,000. This needs to get to $5,000. I don't want to artificially inflate or deflate what that
Yeah.
funding goal is because at the end of the day, it costs X amount of money to produce this thing. Everything that comes over is going to be set aside for future games and future development and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes you get it kind of in these weird spaces to where people will undershoot their crowdfunding goal. And then what ends up happening, right, is that say, hey, we said that we only needed $15,000 for this campaign, but apparently we actually needed $22,000, and because we only made $19,000, we don't know what to do. We're going
Can't
to
do it.
make you pay more money for us,
Oh,
right, or whatever it
yeah.
is, right, and like stuff
Sure.
like that happens, and I'm just like,
Yes.
y'all, I'm not doing this for a living. I'm doing this for fun. So because of that, like, let's just do the thing. I just want stuff to be out there, is what it is.
Gotcha. Well, it's good to set a goal that's attainable. I mean, obviously everyone gets rewarded. That's great. And if you're not making these massive games with pieces and things, I mean, I have friends that
Mm-mm.
have made just gigantic games. You might know one of them if I could think of the name. This guy Ryan here in Portland, and it
Yeah,
was very popular, but it was like humongous. Like it had a board and there was
yeah,
all these
yeah.
pieces, 3D printed pieces, and I'm sure you know. And so that
Soul.
yeah, Soul.
This was
Exactly.
yeah,
My buddy
Soul.
Ryan
Yeah,
Spangler made Soul. So
yeah.
I tried to play Soul with him and some people at the agency we worked at, and I had no idea what was going on. So it's great, but and that's the thing. I just want to reiterate before we move on. Like the thing about these games, they're really fun. But I remember going to a friend's house. It was New Year's, and they had a game that they'd bought. I think it was like a zombie, House of the Dead kind of thing, and it
Mhm.
looked interesting. And we got it out, and we literally took all the pieces out, and we just sat and read the instructions for 10 minutes, and then we put the game away. Like we just
Yeah,
couldn't. So I really appreciate what you're doing, which is like it's more accessible and immediate. It's super economical. Anyone can kind
yeah.
of participate, and I like obviously as more of an introverted person, and I think a lot of creative people maybe that don't want to go somewhere and play a big game with people, like they want to do a solo game. That's really interesting to me as like I
Yeah.
mean, I know that Right isn't. It says up to 4 players. It doesn't have to be solo, but I know
Mhm.
you've done stuff in the past where it's like a solo thing. And
Yeah.
I've gotten those games, and it's really cool to see what comes out of it because it's almost like a magic moment where you got to put the prompt together with your own internal dialogue or your internal
Yeah.
thoughts, and that's a cool space to be in. It's almost like therapy meets because of the journaling thing. It's almost like
Yeah.
therapeutic and creative and unexpected. It's a
Yeah.
cool world. I don't think a lot of people know about this because I think when people think
Yeah.
games, they think, you know, oh, I got to learn this thing or it's a big social event. And these are kind of the opposite of all that. It's like economical. It's almost like
Totally.
if we were back in the day and they had a 99-cent machine at the grocery store, you could buy a little game and it would, you know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
that for kids, it would be like, yeah, I got a new one this week. And then you could just keep cranking them out and like we would have played the heck out of these things. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think this is really cool.
There's things. There's a group, an online shop. They're good friends of mine. They're called Knave Cups, Knave, and they and Jen and Io, they actually have a vending machine at like some bar
Uh-huh.
somewhere. I don't know where it is. I never remember, but it is a legit vending machine, and they will
Love it.
buy my games so that
That's
they can
so
stock them
cool.
in the vending machine, so that you can
Yes.
just get these
This
small
exists.
handheld games. It's exactly what it needs to
See,
be.
Portland needs to have. I mean, if that feels like a very Portland or Austin thing, I feel that should exist in our
Yeah.
cities. Okay, let's go. Let's keep moving. Money. Let's talk about money. As a creator, we talked about keeping the gains economical. For you, as much as you're comfortable with, like money wise, like how do you make these games work, or how do you make your creative process work? Because you've done many of these games and you've been in this world. Like, how do you kind of handle money, or how do you think about money? How does that work for you?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a good question, you know. I'm fortunate that I don't do this full time, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's number one. And so that alleviates so much pressure. That alleviates the this has to be the breakout hit. This has to be the breakout. This has to be the thing. Like, I think the beauty of it is that I'm rarely chasing a big win. Don't get me wrong. When it happens, it's lovely. It is a little unexpected at times, but it's a wonderful thing. So for example, like Portal at Hill House, whenever that came out, I don't know what it was. It was the right place at the right time. It was September of lockdown in 2020. And so a solo journaling RPG game about cosmic horror kind of felt like it was right where it needed to be, right?
sure.
And so and so whenever I launched that on Kickstarter, I think I ended up crowdfunding something like $8,000. My funding goal was still
Wow.
either like $100 or $500 because that's what I've just traditionally have done. And it was just such a really big breakout hit. And I was a little overwhelmed because I didn't know, like, what am I supposed to do with all of this? And very selfishly, it helped fund grad school. Like I used that money to help offset the cost of classes. Like everything still got fulfilled, still had some, probably 20% or so of what was left over on the side for like future work. But at the end of the day, it was like, oh, a lot of this is going to grad school. That's lovely. Zines are economical, especially nowadays whenever there are this isn't super, indie DIY anymore, right? But there are so many like online printing shops now that you can, or just local printing shops that you can go to. You can say, hey, this is what I have. Here are my files. They'll give you an estimate. They'll get things to you, probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. The overhead, there's not much of anything at all. And then really most of what you're paying for is shipping, is postage,
Right.
and the actual materials to get this stuff out. And if you want to add extra things, right, like stickers and things like that, right? So because I've done this a bunch of times now, the money side of the house, it's interesting because it's a bonus. It's gravy. It's a win that I'm able to then put into something else. I think what's also interesting that kind of goes through this is that because of the zines that I make, of the games that I make, what ends up happening is that I have now spent so much time creating them that I have a system. So I'm not spending money testing things. I have elements, I have resources, I have art, I have all of those other just kind of like nuancy little things that you need to have to make something look pretty, fonts, all of that other stuff. Like I have all of those things that I've just been amassing over years. And so because I have this library out there, that it makes it easier to really kind of to proof point something without having to spend money on whether this works or whether this doesn't. Doesn't mean I'm not like hiring an artist to do a cover, right? I've done that a number of times to where I have a friend who is, or somebody I know online who is looking for something. And I'm like, hey, why don't we do a thing together? I can hire you as the artist. And because I had been successful in a previous crowdfunding campaign, I was able to take those funds, set them aside, and go, hey, I'm going to hire you with the funds that I had left over from last time up front. And then let's figure out what is X% of revenue for the remainder of sales on this game or for this crowdfunding campaign, or what are ways that I could support you and what you're doing as an artist.
Yeah. So it seems like going into it, it's low stakes because you're kind of saying, hey, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, fine. I have more ideas. You don't get to control what gets viral, what takes off. It has to be a
Hmm.
certain environment, which is interesting. And just like all things, on the algorithm, I'm trying to post this
Yeah.
video and it gets decent views, but like my call out about layoffs was like 80,000 impressions or something. You can't control
Yeah.
what people attach to.
No.
So I just need to do a show about layoffs. Basically, is what that tells me. But if I was just gonna like obey the algorithm, but I think that's
Yeah.
interesting. Like, so for you, it's like be surprised, cover your bases, and then extras can actually like support what you're doing
Hmm.
um, for your career. And then if it doesn't, it's like you have. I mean, it's like you said, it's gravy on the biscuit. It's like the gravy. It's
Yeah.
extra. So
Yeah.
that's the way you kind of treat it. I mean, I imagine there are people that make a living in the gaming industry, and some people that do
Yes.
quite well. I can't imagine this in the solo RPG zine world. There's probably not people making a living. I'm guessing it's sort of a side
Yeah.
hustle. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it is side hustle, right? And I think that's where things get that's where I have limited myself is because I don't want to go beyond this,
Yes.
right? And because I don't want to have to deal one, I just don't want to have to deal with it. Like very frankly, and especially with shipping the way it is and international shipping and all that I just like I can just put on some additional postage and it be just fine, right? Or if it gets lost in the mail, it takes me $2 to replace at the end of the
Yes.
day, right?
Yep.
But I do have a lot of acquaintances, a lot of friends, colleagues who are trying to do this stuff full time, and because of that, they're constantly pushing to more. And so what I very kind of selfishly don't want to explore is I guess the game earlier dialect. I like this is just the book. Like at the end of the day, it's just like an in-house production or an external production of a book. Like this is the game itself, right? Oh, there's a deck of cards, I guess. So you could I don't know how much I want to like return on investment put into doing something that is this
Yeah.
to see if this will actually work out or not. Like, I love the
Right.
idea of it. I would love the idea of doing a big thing, but I'm not going to make it my career. I'm not going to make it a thing that I want to chase. I like
Hmm.
stability, Zach,
Yeah.
is really what it is, you know?
I mean, I feel you. It's like musicians. The ones who make it a career, it's gonna be a grind. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what you want to make. It's like you need to make this type of music over and over again to
Yeah.
feed, the fan base that wants that type. And
Yeah.
it just puts in contrast all the times people have taken risks and how big those risks are when that's their main thing to kind of pivot
Mm,
to a completely different sound. Or if you're a game designer, I'm sure there's been a lot of instances where people didn't do what they are expected to do from their fan base and then were kind
yeah.
of penalized for it because they're like, we like zombies and you gave us math or aliens or something. I don't know.
Or what happens at times is that they do something different. That different thing that they try becomes their breakout hit. And then they kind
Right.
of feel, oh, I mean, we
Am
see
I
this with
this
bands
now?
all the time, right? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Third album comes out,
Twist
we
up.
decided to go more pop. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, right. It's like, oh, okay, this is what's making us money. Okay, let's do it this way instead, right? And so,
Right.
which there's no shame in that, but it's also like how much back like what do values matter? Do you care, right? Or are you okay with growth and evolution, which we should be, right? At the end of the day, but do I want to go that route? No, not yet. If it happens, cool, but I am not going to manufacture that for myself.
Good things. Let's talk about the tabletop gaming industry. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but there are a few years ago. I don't know. I mean, maybe this is a Portland thing, but we have a place called Red Castle Games. It's on my street. It's massive. It has a coffee shop. It has tables people come in and play, and they often are.
Mhm.
It has a card window where a guy just does cards. It's got, I mean, it's sort of like, I think for the, if I was like on a pilgrimage as a gamer, I would go there and just be like, this is Mecca. Like, this is the place
Yeah.
where that has everything. You know, what's going on with the industry right now? It seems like it's very successful if you're able to have a huge, gaming designated store, even in Portland. I mean, just having a big space for this, it must be doing well.
Yeah, yeah, it is, we I think since 2014, 2015 or so has been, kind of been deemed as the golden age of tabletop gaming, because we kind of came back and Settlers of Catan was a thing, but it was
Right.
just kind of niche and just a few people here and there were playing it, and it was like this game that came out in the mid 90s, and all of a sudden like 2010, 2012, 2014, games, and it just kind of it blew up at that point. And then aligned with that was everything else that goes along with games, right? So it wasn't just, it's like any other industry. The music industry, the movie industry has not just been about the actual creation of the thing, but it has also been about the distribution of it, reviews of it, content around that thing. And board games, that's where it really kind of blew up recently over these last 10 to 15 years or so, is that the content creation around the game itself has also become its own industry. So it's this kind of like recursive movement now, right? To where it's not just I created a game, I'm now distributing this game. Now you have distribution companies who are distributing games. You have people who are making podcasts about it, who are writing blogs, who are now full-time game design artists. I was a rulebook editor for a long time, right? Which was kind of the same thing of like, oh, I'm doing some editing work for a rulebook. Who even thought that that was a thing? And I
Right.
was able to charge people for it. And then obviously you have the stores, and the stores are now seeing themselves as not just the dissemination of the product, but the stores are now seeing themselves as like a neighborhood hub. They're getting
Yes.
cafes, they're getting food, they're having, it's at a bar or whatever it is that makes the most sense for them, right? And so we're kind of seeing that the board game industry has been expanding in a lot of ways. And just really kind of blowing up because of it's not just about the game anymore, but it's all about everything else surrounding your conventions that you have, right? All of this other stuff is just all part of gaming world now, and now everything's being commodified, and because of the internet and social media, it makes it easier to go and someone be a full-time YouTuber that's just reviewing board games. And then they get the board games for free. Like they're not even
Right.
like purchasing the games at times. And so,
Mhm.
it's just it's this cycle that I got this game, I produce a game. Oh, this company wants me to actually record like a playthrough, a how to play video of this game. Okay, it's a 45-minute playthrough and rules teach. Okay, what's X amount that you're going to charge for me to be able to provide this service for you, right? So it's not, so that's where it's really blown up. And I think kind of that latch on of all the other, adjacent industries that are continuing to advance board games and tabletop games in general. That's where it's really kind of blown up for sure.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, my kids watch this video game. He just does Minecraft, but he sells like emojis, or with a
Yeah.
membership, you get emojis, you get special, shout out. And it's like almost like it's not about Minecraft anymore. It's about this guy. Minecraft's great, but it's like this guy might be better because of his personality and how much he yells, I
That.
guess. I don't know what they like about him, but he's yeah, he's like created an industry around himself, and
Mm,
Mr. Beast, all these people,
yeah.
and it's sort of not about the thing it was about. Now it's about them as a person, which is interesting. Um,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk
Yeah.
about that mainstream versus making indie games. Like, what's the divergence like there? Because obviously 10 years ago, I mean, if you have Soul, then like that feels like a, if you would hold that up to me 10, 20 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, came out as a major publisher, it's available at Walmart or something. I mean, it just looks
Yeah.
amazing now.
Yeah.
But it's like it was made by this small group of people. Okay, like, so it seems like I don't know anything about it, but is it like diverging where the indie games are feeling more mainstream and the mainstream's trying to feel more indie games, or kind of like
Yeah.
the music world similar, getting the
I
bands that are of the subculture that you need and that's like blowing up. Like how is that different?
mhm. I think I think it's really analogous in a bunch of ways, right? There are a ton of parallels between the two. Um, in the indie game space, what you see is you see people who are hustling, who are trying to make that translation from I am doing this indie to now I am a full-time designer, or I'm creating my own company because I am now a full-time designer and now I have to brand everything. I did all that stuff anyways, just because I necessarily didn't want like my name attached to all the stuff that I did, and plus I think there was also a part of me, 8 years ago that was like, well, what if this go what if this blows up, right? You kind of have that idea of what if this gets real big. And so you want to like front load that a little bit at the end of the day. But
Sure.
in the indie space, it's really funny because it's just like it's just like the music scene. You have people who are like railing hard against mass production of anything because I very transparently I am a little bit of that person, right?
Okay.
That hardcore and punk ethos that you and I
DIY.
were a part of for so long, right? It's just that background of like I'll just do this myself,
Right.
which provides me a whole lot of control. It also heavily limits reach. It heavily limits what I'm able to get out there at times. And so you're really just kind of like hoping on like your brand, on who you are as a person, or the way that you engage with people and say, hey, like I literally do this all myself at my house. And there are people who would outsource this, right? They would outsource the
Sure.
actual distribution of this stuff, right? And so we see that in the indie space. We see people who've kind of made like this halfway transition over from like indie, but we're also being supported by like a publishing company for distribution purposes, right? And so like I think of that with Soul a lot, right? And that Ryan and crew, they did like this fantastic job of navigating a really complex production of a game, and then they had to figure out how do you produce it, and then they had to figure out how do I just ship this across the world because we're selling however
Yes.
many thousands of copies, right?
Yeah.
And so they could have done that themselves, but instead they partner with their production company who is able to do this. They were able to generate as much money from their crowdfunding campaign to be able to, okay, now like we know we have to hit $15,000 or whatever it was, right? They have to
Yeah.
hit X amount of money on this crowdfunding campaign to be able to print this. And they know that because of shipping, they need to be able to have X amount as well. And what's the bare minimum viable product in terms of amount that we're able to present? Right. And so you have people who are kind of like, and then, but then after that, they haven't, like Ryan and crew, they haven't necessarily like Elephant Laboratories haven't gone out and like partnered with a larger company. They haven't partnered with Hasbro, right? Who, like, Hasbro or Asmodee or any of these like enormous companies who kind of like oversee these smaller companies. And so they're really only you have this really interesting space in the indie world to where people are kind of like hardline total DIY, we're doing it all ourselves. And then you have this group that because of this adjacent industry that has popped up between manufacturing and distribution, that I as an indie designer, I can create a thing, I can work with a production company who might also be a distribution company. Those could be interwoven organizations. I could work with them to be able to get my product out. And so there's a little bit of that translation, but it still might not make it into a game store, which is yet another thing to envision, right? Like Red Castle down the street from you may or may not have Soul because it might not have been widely distributed because it wasn't widely distributed at the time and you couldn't purchase it in stores. But now there's kind of like, what is this next level that we want to get to so that it is available online in third party places?
Yeah, it's interesting because with music, obviously, MP3s changed all that where you didn't need distribution to Best Buy anymore and all that. you could just get your game everywhere. Um, is there a way to put out a game and have it distributed to these places without signing up for these, without like signing up to a major label, for lack of a better word, like
Yeah, yeah.
to Hasbro or whatever, whoever the beast is? Like,
Hmm.
is there a way? Is there like a middle ground where you still can
Yeah.
kind of like get it everywhere?
Um, Everywhere, no, but in certain places, yes. So what you'll see often, so the answer is yes, largely. What you'll
Mm-hmm.
also see at times is that there will, if you see like larger board game crowdfunding campaigns, whether it's on BackerKit or Kickstarter or any of those online platforms, whenever you're like choosing, okay, what version of the game do I want? Do I want the base game for $40? Do I want the deluxe edition that comes with wooden tokens and little metal pawns for $70? Like as you're scrolling through there, usually, not all the time, but usually there's a it's there's a retail pledge that you as a game store or the owner of several game stores can say, hey, I want to get this product for a reduced cost, but I'm going to order 20 copies of this game or 25 copies of this game. And so there are ways, it's still pretty DIY, right? Because that still is beholden on me going, all right, well, you want 20 copies of this. And so I'm just going to ship it to your store and it doesn't go through a third party, which it could be notably better, but it still puts the onus on the game store owner to say, hey, I am going to go onto this crowdfunding campaign and then I am going to sign up for this pledge. Now, at the end of the day, like, let's be real honest, if someone was really interested, they could more than likely just message or email the creator and say, hey, we want to pick up 10 copies of your game. Absolutely you do. Yeah, come on, let's make that happen. But larger distribution, it's still kind of going through some of those larger distribution companies to get into most retail stores instead of just I'm a retail store owner who thinks, hey, that's kind of a cool game. I would love to host that. Though it is getting more prevalent that people are going to brick and mortar stores or that owners of brick and mortar stores are able to get more of those kind of indie or one-off games into their actual shop.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess for a solo, like a zine RPG, the margins on that, it's kind of like for a shop owner to take up space, it would be kind of iffy for them to put that stuff out front. So it's probably,
Mhm.
I mean, it is what it is. I guess you have to
Yeah.
kind of think that
Yeah.
through. Okay, so let's move on.
Mhm.
Balancing creative work was kind of our next topic. Like, obviously you're a PhD student. You're about to become a PhD or get your PhD. How do you fit in this gaming time? Do you have like scheduled times? Do you attack it whenever you have a moment? Do you not work on it for months and then all of a sudden work on it for a month? Like, what's your
No,
process
no.
like?
Yeah. It's been interesting because the deeper so I started really truthfully like designing and putting out games probably around 2018, 2019. I entered into this doctorate program in the tail end of 2020 into 2021. And so I really only had about a year and a half 2 years of like, I'm just get to do this all on my own without worrying about everything else, right? And I'm
Yep.
still full-time employed elsewhere, right? And so I work in public education in Texas. It's and so on top of that was PhD work and going to classes and all that mess that deals with that. And so I had this really interesting, like, quick ramp up into, oh, this is a fun thing to explore. And then out of nowhere, I lost time because I had to read 100 pages of academic literature a week, and I had to write this thing and do this research on top of working 40 or 45 hours a week at the organization that I was full time employed at. So game design, the last way that you mentioned is actually the way that it happens for me still to this day right now, to where I have like a game design journal
Okay.
that just whenever ideas come up, just drop in some stuff, right? Just like you do with a lot of creative endeavors, right? And so just drop in a bunch of things as we go. Idea, this is a cool idea. This might be a thing. This is a phrase. This is a something that like triggers a thing. And because a lot of what I do, a lot of what I make, I try to do something that's, not just like kind of your generic fantasy thing or your generic sci-fi thing or whatever. I try and do like weird things to try and do like emotionally resonant things or heartfelt things or stuff that really kind of tugs at you as an individual, as a person. Because of that, those fragments are important, and then I'll just kind of amass them, right? And then I will go on a bender over 3 weeks or 4 weeks to where I will start translating one or two of those ideas into just stuff, and then it just goes. And
When you
especially
say stuff,
especially
is it like what does that mean? You're
yeah,
journaling a bunch of ideas, or you're writing on note cards, or what does that look like?
I am online. I am in a graphic design program dropping things in.
Okay,
I got I have like, Illustrator up or InDesign up or whatever it is, and I'm just going in and I'm dropping things in. I'm translating
inspiration.
that. Yeah, yeah, and I'm translating these ideas, these phrases that I have into how could this be, like, how is this gamified? How do I turn this into an experience that people want to play? And so some of those are really easy to translate because it's some dice or I'm creating a table or any of that other stuff. But like over a few weeks, I'll start thinking of like, what does this feel like? What is the inspirational? What is art, right? Like what is art? How does this make sense? What are those kind of little nuances of things that could go in where? And then why don't I just start putting things into a thing and just see what sticks and what doesn't. And so over the course of a couple of weeks, I'll just go like really deeply into staying up late, putting stuff into like some type of like graphic design document, thinking of like, okay, how does this, not worrying about layout, right? I mean, it back of mind, layout is there, of course, but it's just more of what is the form factor? Is this a 12-page thing? Is this a 32-page thing? How much or how little do I want to put in here? And sometimes it will come out and it'll be a great thing that's 80% of the way there, and sometimes it will show up and it'll be 20%. And I'm like, yeah, I need to work on this a little, a little more.
How
And
many
obviously,
ideas do you
yeah,
have at once? Like, how many game ideas are in there, or are you like focused on
yeah.
one and building out one at a time?
I I usually am intentionally working on one at a time.
Okay.
But I have some levels of probably, 2 to 5. I have probably 20 to 30 folders of
Like
game
in a,
design thoughts
it could
that are in, that
possibly.
are
Okay. Oh,
that are
thoughts.
yeah, that are in some type of, or they're in some type of stage of production, or it's a card deck that I'm trying to create, and I have some stuff that I made and it needs to be printed out and worked through, or play tested, any of that other stuff. So
So how do
yeah,
you know that
it's a
that one
bunch.
is the one? Like the one. Like let's talk about the latest one. How did you
Yeah.
write? Like how did you know write? And I'll say it's RITE, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So RITE, right? How did you know that one was the one you were going to stick with? And then like how long did you work on it?
Yeah. So right is an interesting case because back in 22, I created a summertime game is what I called it. It was called Stay, and it was a four letter name. The Stay is an acronym, for the four roles that people could take on. I think it was like there was I don't remember what the acronym was, but it was like a yearner, stuff like that, right? Right is the
Okay.
exact same way, right?
Okay.
Right is witchy. It's a
Okay.
little witchy, right?
Okay.
And so you have like an evoker, you have a thinker, an initiate, and a ritualist. Those are the
Okay.
four roles that you have, RITE, right? And so, yeah, that's how all that stuff sets up. And so what's interesting is that I created a summertime version of one one back in the summer of 22, and it was about young kids going on like kids on bikes, right? Kids on bikes going around. It's summertime. You got a whole lot of nothing to do. What are the things that you're doing? What are the things that you're doing with your summertime and your play, whatever that stuff is, right? But I never did anything with it because my idea was, what if I did one for every season, which was my trap, because I had already said, okay, I'm going to make one of these. Now I'm going to make four of them.
Yeah.
But what happens if those first two ideas of inspiration don't translate anymore, right? And so that's how that's how I kind of like shot myself in the foot early on. And I tried to do one for spring and I tried to do one for fall, and I was just struggling with it. And then grad school got real hot and heavy at that point, and I'm like, I'll just come back to this. A few months ago, I was digging through files. I'm trying to like claw my way out of grad school, and I see this file that's called Write, and I went, I've never done anything with this. Like, I had a test print and everything. Like, it was at a stage to where I could literally just like update a couple of small things and then hit print, right? Like, that's where it was. And I'm like, why don't I do something with this? And so I go back into it. I make a couple of like small revisions here and there. And so now it's like ready and able to go. Right. But it was the second of supposedly a 4-part series of games. And whenever I was making the second one, it was easier because I already had like the form factor structure of the game from the first summertime game that I made. And I went, okay, I'm doing summer. Why don't I do something for winter? That would be fun. What if you're all kind of like witchy type people who are creating this like midwinter bleak, ritual sacrament type stuff for your town, but we want it to be a benefit for your town. We don't want it to be like you're going out, boring, I'm going to hex this guy. But instead, it's like, what are the things that you could do to positively support the town that you're in? So each player in this game takes on one of these 4 roles, to where you are the evoker, which is like you're trying to determine what are the elements that you're going to use in this ritual, in this sacrament that you're going to put out, right? And so each person takes on this role. And so being able to translate that from summertime playlist kids on bikes type of vibe to bleak midwinter, winter solstice, witchy in the woods vibe, more time was probably spent over about a month, is probably about the amount of time that I spent on it, because form factor was already there. I already knew like this is how it's going to be set up. I'd already, even in layout, had already had it, kind of like the sketch and the template all put together. So translating it over from summertime to witchy was really just more about like finding the right words, finding the right vibe of either art or graphics that are going to go along with this. I probably spent more time like choosing colors and figuring out like what makes the most sense in this space and getting it to fit on a page while still like shifting it, right? Because I don't want it to be a one-to-one copy of what I did over for that summertime game. So how can I still make this feel unique or different or whatever it is? Yeah. So it was an interesting space because I didn't have to do like a month of upfront work. It was really just, I was able to go fully into content creation for it instead of the actual, the nuts and bolts of, I got to open up Affinity Publisher and see how this works or not.
So this one, it seems like it came together a lot simpler because you had the structure there from the first, from the summer game.
Yeah.
Do you put less into that one because it happened easier? Do you ever do that as a creative person where it came easy, so you sort of like go, yeah, that one was cheap, and then if people really like it, you're kind of like, okay, it was really, but the ones you worked really hard on that don't hit, and it's like,
totally,
you should care about this other one because it was really hard. And people are like, yeah, we don't like that one.
Yeah. Oh, all the time, right? Because I've tried to like set myself up as being, and this is a weird thing about branding, right? Because I try to like set myself up as being kind of like this, I want to explore, like, right doesn't make sense based off of everything else that I talk about, right? Because I want people to explore more of who they are and the way that they see things. and it, just the way that they engage in the world around them. Like that's like kind of like my bread and butter. But then, and I make those games and I make like these emotional games. I have this. We can go off on a long tangent about this at some other
Is
point, but
emotional games a thing like emo music? Are there emo games?
I want, yeah, yeah. I mean, I want people to feel things, you know,
Sure.
like there's this solo, there's this. It was another solo journaling game, but I made it out of cards. It was an 18 card game that just came in this itty bitty little package, right? That was, what did I call it? I called it "Why the F did they keep this?" And it was a solo journaling game based off of cards to where someone in your family has passed away and they've left like
Mm,
their house full of
I
records
love
or their
that.
house full of
I'm going
whatever,
through that right now.
and your job, right, and your goal is you're going through this space of trying to like pull apart, like, why did they keep this?
Yes.
And right into you're navigating this space. And so like something that's like really personal, like that was from my uncle who passed away right before COVID hit. And like a part of it is like, how am I dealing with grief of navigating this new space without him being a part of it in a meaningful manner? And then how can I gamify it, or how can I translate this into an experience that people can play? And it didn't take off. I mean, obviously, like it's a weird thing. It's people are like, "Ooh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Why don't I talk about like maybe my buddy got fired from work and they left his office the same. Maybe I look at it from that angle. I'm like, that's
Okay.
fine too.
Yeah.
Right. You be as creative as you want, but like that stuff, oh, I wish that would have taken off. Not because of like money, but because of just exposure, right? I
Yeah.
would love for people to say, like, what does this space look like for you? But instead people want cosmic horror and exploring houses, which is also fine because I love that experience as well. But it's yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I kind of like ran through right because it was a little bit easier, and you know we'll see what comes up with it for
I
sure.
think you and I should develop a LinkedIn game that it happens on LinkedIn and it's called Laid Off, and it's like you get laid off. Here's the deck. Like you have to like go through each of these rituals. The first one is the public humiliation ritual of the open to work banner.
Oh my
The
gosh.
second is the post about how happy you were to work at the place that laid you off because they're so
Hmm.
great.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah,
it's a humiliation game. It's sort of like it's a game for
it
people
is.
who like humiliation. Um, okay, well we'll work on that. But
Done.
I
That's funny.
think what I love about this whole thing is like there are so many unexplored territories in creativity. Like
Yeah.
zines are a thing that are coming back. I feel like I've seen more
Yeah.
zines recently, and you
Hmm.
see kids who are wearing Jinkos with CD players and or just buying CDs that don't have CD
Love
players.
it.
Like the new Taylor Swift is selling lots of CDs to kids that don't know how a CD works, which is
Yeah.
really fascinating. But it makes sense because it's like package. You know, and I love packaging. You know, you buy the packaging, you look
Yes.
at it, you stare
That.
at it, right? And
Hmm.
I think there's a thing there, and it's really interesting how with a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, you can do so much.
Oh.
And
Oh.
if you limit yourself
Yeah.
to those things, and I really think that's really interesting because, like, if people wanted to create a game, it's sort of like how these little devices are letting people play music. You know, like from my wife got it really into these teenage engineering, like drum machine and a synth.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like really they're like $100, but they like basically do everything. And she got really into them to make music, and
Uh-huh.
it's kind of like that where it's like I want to make a game, but you look at a game and you go that's overwhelming. But if somebody
That's
if
it.
Travis Hill says you can use a piece of paper and this is what it looks like, and this is how, and you just get inspired and you make this and then you put it
Yeah.
out and people
Yeah.
know what that is. I think that's cool because it's almost like a new format where you have cassettes, you have CDs. Well, now you have a piece of paper. Like, can you make a piece of paper? Yes. All right. What are some ideas that you have? And just,
Yeah.
I think that's so cool that as a way, because we used to the zine library here in Portland. You know, it was a lot about how to make a zine or just how easy it is to make a zine. Get people making one to realize,
Hmm. Hmm.
oh, and the next thing you know, they can do 14 pages, 36 pages, and they're doing a full color
That's it.
thing. It's like we need more of this where people know, oh, I could just do this and
Hmm.
put it out and have fun, and or just give it to my friends even like that. That's what I love about
Yeah,
the place we came from with music was like I can make something and just show my friends and they can show their
that's
friends
it.
and
Yeah,
and something could happen from it, but I don't care. I'm just making stuff. That's a really
yep,
cool
that's
just new
it.
outlet I hope people embrace more of
Yeah.
is this indie game thing
Well,
that doesn't cost. I love the economical of it. Like you can do it
mhm.
in a weekend.
Yeah. Well, and there are so many outlets as well now, right? So there is itch.io is an online repository of games. And it really got its wind early on a few years ago because itch.io had a lot of video games. So like indie video game developers could put stuff on itch, right? But the RPG space has blown up immensely because it's not fully dependent on me producing a physical copy that can be shipped out to you, right? If you're doing it in a digital format, you have a digital file that you can download, that you can save as a PDF and upload it into itch.io, and now people have access to it and they can print it out at home, or they could download it and have it on like a tablet like an iPad or whatever, or you could have just your own zines that you make, right? You could have your small like one page that you could print out. And I have stuff that I've loaded on there through Presspot Games, and it's just been, it's fun, like in terms of kind of going back to the money conversation. It's nice because it's just there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a ton of money, right? But at the end of the day, it's a few bucks here and a few bucks there. And then if something goes like quasi viral, then all of a sudden I have a bunch of $3 to $5 orders on itch that show up over the span of a few weeks, to where a dozen people found my games and found them interesting, and we're just like, hey. And what's beautiful about it is that it's also an informal way to do it, right?
Yeah.
That you can put things up for free. You can have community copies so that you can charge your $3 or $5 or whatever it is, and then you could have 200 community copies so that whenever you can still have that like DIY distribution ethos, to where it's, hey, I would like to make some money on this, but if not, who cares at the end of the day? I just want to have this stuff out there and available to people.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking at
Yeah.
itch now. There's a game called Wolf Quest where you're a wolf. It's like an
Yeah.
educational game. Anyway, this is
I
cool.
love it. Right?
Yeah, yeah, you're a wolf. I mean, why not? And then the first one is like kick off with these game jams, road trip game jam, a chill low
Yeah.
stress jam. So
Okay.
I love that it's just like, yeah, this is chill low stress. Play this. You're on a road trip.
Well, and then
What about this?
what's fun about it is that game jams are exactly what you think they are.
Yeah.
Someone is going to create this. I'm going to give you a prompt
Mm-hmm.
for to do this thing, and you know what, you have a month to make this thing. So it's a low stakes. So part of a lot of what I like to do, in addition to just like the creative side of things, is just like what we were talking about. Like, I want people to see that you can make this stuff at your house, that if you have access to some of these like either graphic design things or whatever. Like, I know people who have done such a fantastic job who seriously make all of their games in Canva on the free account, because they can just upload things and it kind of quasi organizes things in some type of graphic design format. And so with game jams, it really incentivizes people who want to try something new or who have never done this before to, why don't you just jump in here and just see if you could create something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, you have charity bundles that happen. You'll have a lot of charity bundles for like, some type of aid for somebody, like anti-immigration stuff, like all of this stuff, trans rights. You have all sorts of mutual aid bundles that show up as well that are then donated. So it is this really kind of like fun, interesting, like DIY, like indie punk type of we're going to come together and we're going to get this stuff out here, and I'm going to just use it as a playground for things, and then maybe I make some money off of it and maybe I don't. Who cares?
Yeah, you kind of mentioned that when we were talking before about creativity as resistance. Like, what does that look like for you
Yeah,
with what's happening right now, or what's been
man.
happening? How are
No,
you working with that?
man. I think in my world, because I kind of sit at the nexus of I work in and for public education in Texas, which is enough in and of itself, right? As a PhD researcher who works in the education space, who is trying to not only advance educational research and practices for like equitable access to like enriched rigorous opportunities for students on one side, and then like my actual work working with the education space across North Texas on the other side, and then from this creative outlet with everything else that's going on, I feel that I feel that there is a need and there is a requirement to a degree for me to create things that transcend all of those spaces.
Mm.
In whatever way that makes sense, right? I mean, obviously, joy as an act of resistance, creation as an act of resistance. We hear about these things, we see about these things all the time that people are people feel guilty to create a thing in the current environment because you're like,
Yeah,
how is this
things are
going
on
to
fire.
advance
Like,
anything?
what? How
Everything's
should I
on
have a
fire, right?
party? Yeah,
Yeah, who cares about let's see, my desk is a hot mess right now. I've created an RPG zine that is called Thursday Night Thrash Show. And it's where you're moshing against monsters,
nice.
right? Like that's the whole game. It's just this little zine, right? But at the very back of it, I have these couple little lines that say, "We all know who the real monsters are."
Yeah,
And in the game, obviously these monsters are, zombies or the
right.
dead or a big amorphous blob or whatever it
Right.
is. But at the end of the day, we all know
We all know it's the
what
governor of Texas, and
yes, right? Like we all know these things, right?
right.
And so like sometimes it's about putting out, and if I'm thinking things specifically through like the RPG space and the indie RPG space, this is where I am very fortunate that because of the niche that I've carved out for myself and the fact that like I'm not tied to a big game design company or a big publishing house, that like I could make more of these kind of like one-off games that are real specific, right? So like I had one that was like, how are you advancing the revolution? It was the actual name of it. And it was submitted to a jam. It was submitted to a Tiny Worlds TTRPG jam, tabletop role-playing game. And this Tiny World jam was create a small form zine, that a small form RPG that you can use as like a little bit of world building for some larger game, right? Like the idea is that I could go here, I could engage in this experience of like character creation and world building, and then we could do something else with it as we go, right? Like that's kind of the idea behind this world jam. But I made it as a one page, 8 panel, folded zine called How Are You Advancing the Revolution? And it is and it is all about it is all about finding your voice. It's all about finding your purpose. It's all about finding your community, but it's all gamified, right? Roll some dice, flip over some cards.
Hmm.
How does this resonate with you and your community? So it's about a group of people coming together to figure out like what is their passion and what is their voice and what are they trying to fight against and who are the oppressors and how are they being oppressed and all of that. But it's just in this little like world building thing. So I find that there are really interesting spaces to engage in very meaningful ways that could still just be a random game that gets put out, but done so in a creative manner that still speaks opposition to the power that is out there.
Mm, that's cool. I like that. And it is a small, tiny things. I mean, letting people find a voice, for example. I think that's a the type of person who digs up a game might be a very quiet, humble person. Given the opportunity to
Mhm.
lead something in a game, to sort of beta test being a leader in real life and having
Yeah.
a voice in real life, I mean,
Mm.
it is really cool. I love that. You kind of mentioned schools. Kind of one of the topics you want to talk about.
Mm.
What was it about schools
Man,
that
I
you were interested
think
in?
I think because I sit in this weird in between space of like what is we hear was that TED talk from Sir Ken Robinson from a number of years ago that was like schools kill creativity. And
Yeah,
right. And it's like the man's not wrong, right? Because of just like the construct and the format of like how schools work. Like, yeah, it's like he's not fully wrong, but there is, if I put on like my PhD hat over here, there is a lot of like parallels between like academic performance and creativity, right? And so there are ways that within, I think unfortunately too often because everything is high stakes testing, obviously in Texas, but outside of Texas, everything is high stakes testing, trying to get
what do you mean by high
qualifying.
stakes testing?
Yeah, trying to get qualifying scores on like
Oh
the
yeah, like kids
SAT
have
or
to
the
test a lot.
ACT.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then like you can't advance to the next grade level because you're not hitting some standard on some one day assessment that you take that's supposed to be the culmination of your entire grade level experience. Because there's so much focus on that, there's a whole, curriculum component back behind that. And there's a way that teachers have to teach
Sure.
that makes it feel that like no one can branch out, that no one can try something new or try something different in their space. Whenever we know, like from like actual creativity research, that there is some alignment between, you know, like creative abilities and academic achievement. And so we know that those spaces exist and that kids who are doing better on these assessments or kids who are doing better just like overall in grades have like a higher propensity to be able to think creatively, to be able to think new and generate interesting ideas. And so it's just like, how do we tap into that? And I don't have an answer. And I think that's like, that's a systematic issue like within like a school district or a school setting, but like how do we tap into that like after elementary school? Because I think at younger grades and primary grades it's easier to kind of go creatively in some spaces, right? You get some your little building blocks and you do some of that stuff, but like once you get into like middle school, once you get into high school, what does that look like? Everything of creativity is filtered through the arts. Everything in creativity gets kind of squelched by academic, advanced academic courses. You're in a dual enrollment exam course, or you're in an AP exam course, or something along those lines. And so, oftentimes, people feel that there's no room. And I would love for the education world to start thinking, what are ways that we can explore creativity to support students and not as just an enrichment activity that occurs whenever we have some free time or a student chooses it as an elective in class. I don't know. I don't know
So
what
it's
that is.
yeah. So what are ways like as somebody with a PhD coming up, is that something that is I don't know what specifically your dissertation is or what you're promoting, but do you bring those types of thinking or those types of thoughts and this type of outlook into that specifically, or is that a different thing?
It's a little bit of a different thing, but the seeds of that are the same across everything, right? So my a lot of my work, both professionally and educationally, kind of fit in that making sure that we are equitably providing opportunities and access to high quality teachers and high quality advising and high quality instruction and access to either advanced academics courses or enrichment opportunities for students who either, are marginalized or underrepresented, historically excluded in these spaces. And so the seed of that nugget is there, regardless of whether I'm talking about research or like my actual professional life. And so creativity is just another sliver of that, right? It's another one of those options of why does it have to be an AP course or band?
Right.
What does that look like together? I mean, obviously you're not merging them, but like
Right.
why is everything so siloed in that way? And so hope, right? Hope is that like future research, whatever this comes down to, whatever I end up doing with all this, that could play a role in it as well.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you for all those thoughts. Please take some time here to promote what you're doing.
Yeah.
Presspot Games, is that what it is?
Presspot, yeah,
Okay, we
Presspot
didn't even
Games.
mention Presspot Games.
Yeah.
It's Presspot Games.
Presspot.games,
Okay.
or presspotgames.itch.io, since we're doing that. It's a one person thing. It's me in this office. I have friends. My spouse will come in and we'll kind of design some stuff. I make a bunch of small form things is really what it is, right? So card games, train games, like economic little route building type of card games and stuff like that. I'll do that. Card rails is one of them. Auction games, I like that type of stuff. And then obviously all of the RPG stuff that we've been talking about as well. Everything's always available in a PDF form if people want to just check it out that way. Or obviously you can like go to presspot.games. You could order like physical copies and I will ship them to you whenever they get here. You were talking about like one page zines and that feeling. I've actually been toying with the idea of of making a Patreon called Presspot Zines to
Nice.
make like handcrafted, not handcrafted, but I print at home and I cut and I fold and everything,
Yeah. Check those out.
zines to
Yeah.
right.
That's
And
cool.
so like my thought, right? So Thursday Night Thrash Show is one of them that I was just like poking at, right? And so the idea is that I have one that's an actual game, or part of like an RPG game. And then I have another one that is just whatever it is that I want it to be. Right. And so like the first one is about my cat, right? I have a black cat named Knox that I found on the street. And he has decided that we are his people and he's been with us now for just over 5 years. And so I had a game. I made this little solo game that fits in a small zine format called A Cat Adrift, and it's about a cat who is trying to make its way back home. But then the complementary zine to go with that, right, is a zine about my cat, just in general, right? And
Awesome.
I was just like this, but it's the idea of I want to limit it to the number of people who get actual physical copies, right? I mean, obviously people can go in and they can sign up for like the digital PDF ones, but the fun of it is how can I do something monthly? Because as I've mentioned, I have all these game ideas that I don't know if they're meant to be like a full on creation that might just fit better in a smaller, interesting one page format. So, what are the ways that I could do that in an interesting way that I could still kind of get through like the distribution of zines and zine culture? And the last one that I'm going to hold up is one that, I talked about like overnight, just knocking things out, right? One of the ones that is going to pair right now. And whenever I say I'm tinkering with the ideas, like I want to make it very clear. Like I already have like a whole Patreon page set up. It's just turned off. I wanted to get like 4 months worth of content put up, ready to go before I hit the
Nice.
go button. And
Nice.
then Write showed up and I went, oh, maybe I should do that first. Right. So
Okay.
this is how my brain works. But to go with Thursday Night Thrash Show and I made this I made the draft of this 2 nights ago and it's just zines what they are, how to make them, why to make them, and why zine creation is a critical practice of liberation and empowerment, unencumbered by capitalistic practices and indirect defiance to the status quo. And it's a whole zine about where zines came from and why to make them, and the resources and how to make them. Even to the point that I'm like, you could take this zine, you could unfold it, and you just trace it. That's it. Just trace the lines, make the cut the way that I make the cut, and then fold it. Why don't you make your own? And at the very back of it, I actually say, why don't you just send one to me? Whenever you make one, get back in touch with me.
That's cool.
I would love to trade zines with you, right? And so, whenever I'm thinking about things that I do, it's all about weird, kind of small little things that it's just come out of a lot of the ethos of what I've just been doing off and on for 20 plus years musically or in the music scene. And just like, this is kind of how I want to make this. And I don't want it to be a big thing. And I just want to do this and explore this idea a little bit and then just see what happens with it. I do it for a few months and then it either blows up or it doesn't blow up or it ends up just being 5 people. And then those are my 5 friends for half of a year. And then I go, okay, that's done. This was a fun idea. I appreciate y'all. I'm actually going to close up shop or I'm going to pause for a few months and then maybe I'll come back later. I don't know. I think feeling comfortable saying no to those things and stopping a thing, because I think oftentimes we want every endeavor to be a capital T thing that we do. It has to be a production. It has to do all of this. It has to be successful.
Yes.
Has to go this way, right? But I think oftentimes, and so one of those things that I've started feeling really comfortable with is going, this actually just isn't working out. That's okay. So why don't we just stop it or pause it and then revisit it sometime down the road? And maybe it'll be a cool thing or maybe it won't. Who cares? And be okay with that flexibility.
I love that. I think everybody should get a copy of zines with the zines that they get so they can learn about zines, because it's not entirely clear all the time.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I agree. I mean, that's what this show is. This show has, I don't know, 13 or 16 subscribers on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I put it out on LinkedIn, these 15-minute clips, and then they have to watch them. So somebody watched a clip or they went to YouTube, they subscribed. I appreciate that. That's cool. My goal for the show is, I think the average podcast is 8 episodes, which is really funny.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
a lot more episodes than I would think. I would think the average one would be like 2 or maybe 3.
I guess you do have those outliers who have like 5,000
I think
episodes
that's
that's all that's all they do.
The average podcast is probably 1, actually, if you really figured it out. But I'm like, all right, there's 8. I'm gonna do 9. I was talking to a friend last night. He was talking about just doing one more than somebody else. Is fun. And so I think I'm trying to buck the status quo, do 9, and keep it going. If it's fun and people want to watch it, great. I think LinkedIn there's a lot of people that are bored that want to watch videos, and I like putting a video on of people talking about something interesting. So it's fine. It could be background noise, but
Funny.
okay. So support Write. You can go to Kickstarter.com and search RITE and it'll come up. It's only $7, people, for the physical zine. So get Write and do it. Do it with friends. Do it by yourself. You can also get other zines from Travis on Kickstarter. You can add those in. You can get the PDF bundle. You can get PDFs of I guess all your games, which is awesome.
A bunch.
Bunch of
why
them,
not?
Which is really cool.
It's like a dozen games or whatever.
Yeah. Portal Hill House, World Is Not Yours. I have a few of these. Astronomical, Reunification. Check these out. And if you haven't done a RPG before, don't be intimidated. And if you don't know what a zine is, don't be intimidated. Check it out, or just get the PDF, print it out yourself, try it, see what you think. I mean, everybody's got time on the weekends, or there's some time off of work, hopefully, that you want to kill, and maybe you don't want to read a book, and you can get off your phone, right? I think something interesting about physical zine is there's no screens, and you don't have a black hole of more to do. It's like you need to sit here and do this thing. Even though this thing is a game, and it sounds weird to say you have to do this game, but I think as adults, you have to go. It's time
Yeah.
to. I have to play. I have to go do something to play
Yes.
right now because
Yes.
we don't value that. We don't, or we value it, but
Mm-mm.
we don't do it. And
No.
so, yeah, I think people should get more into games, is what it is. And
Same.
people on LinkedIn that are on LinkedIn should get off LinkedIn and play a game. Is what I think. Um,
I'm here for it because I use LinkedIn for like wildly professional
sure,
research stuff,
sure,
right? And so
yeah,
I love that this is going to pop into my feed and be like,
yeah,
ooh, look, this is
totally.
something totally different.
Right. And I post wildly wild thing, or I don't know how to put it. Like I post like try to silly things, and then when serious people get in the comments, it's always funny to me. People I don't know that work as a forklift operator in Illinois saying like you're wrong. It's great. I like it. I embrace all of LinkedIn. I'm not trying to segregate LinkedIn into my comfortable group and then everybody else. I think everybody should jump in. But yeah, thank you for walking us through the game world and what you're
Yeah.
doing. It's so cool and creative, and keep it up and keep
Thanks,
making
man.
stuff. And yeah, don't stop making stuff. I mean, like
Yeah.
you said, if something doesn't hit, then something does, great. It doesn't matter if 5 people play it. That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
13 subscribers that watch a video, that's awesome. Thank you. Like if one person subscribes and watches, that's interesting. But do it because you like to do it
Hmm.
because it's fun. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the key. I was talking to my friend last night about do it because you like to do it, not because you have to do it, and that changes
Yeah.
everything, right? And
Yeah.
then it's just like it's gravy on top. It doesn't affect it. So
Well, and subscribers is such an interesting thing, right? Because for a subscriber, you want to get no you're anticipating the future. You see the
yes,
value or the interest of the present, and you go, I want to see more of this from this person for the future. So
right.
it's a multiplied effort as well. Of it's not just a right now I want to engage with what you're doing here, but instead I want to know every future iteration of this that comes in. So those 13 explode over time.
Yeah. And my friend wrote me. He said it's hard. He said YouTube is hard to break through, and I was like, I don't really want to break through. And I kind of know. Actually, I kind of know how to break through because back in the day,
Hmm.
I he made a video, and I suggested he do something in the video, and he did it. And it was a popular video that he kind of remixed, and it has 500,000 views now. You kind of know
Funny.
how to go viral because you kind of know what works, but that doesn't necessarily
Mm,
mean you should do it or it's good.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff, a lot of the brands on LinkedIn, the brands of people, they just go after one thing, right? Like they're just like, oh, you're the layoff person or you're the angry about AI person. If I was
Yep.
just the angry about AI person, I would have I would have a brand and a personality in seconds on LinkedIn. Everybody's like,
Oh,
I'm liking and
yes.
subscribing. Feel
Hmm.
free to trash AI all day and humiliate
Yes.
AI in my feed. I love you
Hmm.
instantly. So that's, I mean, you can go
And that's
viral,
it.
but
Yeah.
people that talk one week to somebody who does advertising films and another week to a game designer, it's kind of like what I was doing with the record label back in the day. It doesn't really
Hmm.
make sense, but it does. Also, it does.
Hmm.
It's about creativity, and it's what I
Yes.
think is interesting, and hopefully people see value in that. What's interesting, and not being Mr. Beast. Like every video is gonna be something times a billion. We know. Yeah, you're
Yes.
gonna do a
Yeah.
thing and times a billion. Okay, that's crazy.
Hmm.
He figured that out. But there's room in the world for people who want to do the quiet thing to 5 people. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that creates emotion. I think that's cool.
Thanks. This has been fun, man.
Yeah, it was good. Thank you for the chat, Travis. And we got the website all linked to right. Go back it. There's 3 days to go. Actually, by the time this airs, it's going to be over. But
It
this
goes
is
till
on
Tuesday
LinkedIn.
morning.
Oh, Tuesday. Okay, so this is going to air on Monday. This is going to be on LinkedIn on Monday. So go back it. There's a day to go. It's already reached its goal, but you should check it out, and you should do right this midwinter, wherever you are, unless you're in LA and it's not really winter. Thanks for coming on, Travis. Great to chat
Yeah,
with
man.
you. And I'm sure we'll chat again soon,
Totally.
man.
Got it. Thanks, man. Talk soon.
Talk soon.